UFC Fight Night Vegas 110, Garcia versus Onama takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on this absolutely stacked blockbuster card. I mean, this one's a banger. I'm really interested by it, so let's waste no more time and get started with the early prelim opener of... oh my good lord. Talita, Alencar versus Ariane Carnelossi. The one we've all been waiting for. I don't know. I'm going to go with Ariane Carnelossi. The shoulders are a dead giveaway. And when I'm not sure, I'm going to go with this. Okay? And I don't know if you can blame me for this. Okay, guys? But when I'm not sure on something, even though Talita Alencar is a favorite here, she's had some stinkers herself, and she hasn't really beaten anyone that good. Ariane Carnelossi's not the best either, but Piera Rodriguez is a decent grappler. Lupita Godinez spent a lot of time on top position against Ariane Carnelossi as well. So I do worry. You know what? I'm going to go against Talita Alencar. She's a little bit too small in my opinion. I do worry that maybe her grappling will be enough to just completely dominate Ariane Carnelossi on the ground. But sometimes with the women's grapplers, when they come from that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background, you worry that they can't actually get the takedowns in the first place too consistently. And we've seen Alencar have some troubles getting opponents to the ground before. So I'm going to go with Ariane Carnelossi being a bit too physical. Shock twist. I know. Little bit too physical, little bit too strong. Who saw that one coming? And I reckon she's going to manhandle Talita Alencar whenever she does shoot for a takedown. And if this does get left on the feet, I think Ariane Carnelossi is going to win this fight on damage. So I'm going to go with Ariane Carnelossi with an upset decision to start the card. But before we move on up the card, this video is sponsored by prizepicks.com. New users play $5, get $50 instantly in lineups when they use code GURU at prizepicks.com. Use code GURU. And this week, I'm going to say that Ardelean is going to fight for more than 2.5 rounds. I know, crazy. I'm predicting her to go to a decision. I'm also going to say that Daniel Frunza is going to fight for less or land less than 40.5 significant strikes. And I'm going to say that Jeremiah Wells is going to land less than 27.5 significant strikes, because I think if he does, he'll probably have finished a fight by then. And if he doesn't, it's probably because he's losing to Temba Garimbo. So that's what I'm going to go with this week. Use code GURU at prizepicks.com. We move on with the rest of the card. Starting with, again, Philip Rowe versus Seokhyeon. Another tricky one for me. There is a temptation to pick Philip Rowe here because he's big, he's tall, he's rangy, he's got a good grappling base as well. But Seokhyeon just seems to lead the dance very well and be extremely aggressive. And I think that's what you need to do to beat Philip Rowe. Now, I'm really worried about this prediction again, because if it doesn't go the way I think it will, I have to admit that Orban Elliott's fucking trash. But he isn't, because he did have 3 wins in a row and beat some good guys and looked good against those opponents as well. I'm going to say that Seokhyeon is going to get this one done. I was impressed by Philip Rowe's last performance against Ange Lucer, and I did pick him to win that one. I said he would get hurt early and then come back and finish Ange Lucer in the later rounds. But you know what? Getting hurt early by Ange Lucer is not a good look. Ange Lucer hits like a bitch. I'm just being real. He does. He doesn't hit hard at all. It seems to be no matter what he hits people with, they seem to just stand there. He's a very volume-heavy guy. Physical dude, good sprawls, good takedown defense in moments. Philip Rowe eventually beat him up against a cage, framing on his head and punching him in the face. But Seokhyeon's got grappling to go to, where he does take dominant position. It's not like he's going to play in the guard too much of his opponent. He goes to the back, gets the body lock takedowns up against a cage. He's also got vicious KO power as well. He's dealing with a big reach disadvantage here, but sometimes it takes Philip Rowe a little bit too long to get into fights, in my opinion. He did have a close decision fight with Neil Magny, which is a good look in hindsight, because a lot of guys are losing to Neil Magny, but he did lose to Neil as well. Welcome to the club, Philip Rowe. Everyone's lost to Neil Magny at welterweight these days. All but 1 in 4 contenders are making it past the Magny test, it feels like these days. He also lost to Jake Matthews, pretty clearly as well. Didn't really look too good in that fight, in my opinion, but it was a bit of a stinker both ways. But other than that, I don't think Philip Rowe's really beaten anyone that good. And Seokhyeon made Oban Elliott look easy. So he should be able to get past Philip Rowe, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Seokhyeon KO, who's going to get this one done by early finish. I reckon he's going to crack Philip Rowe on the chin and put him down. Aggressive early, mix up a takedown or two, and then bang, crack Philip Rowe over the top, on the jaw. Down goes Philip Rowe in round 1. I'm going to say that Seokhyeon KO lives up to his surname and gets a KO win in the second fight on the prelims. We move on. Up the card. Ardelean versus Montserrat Conejo Ruiz. Now, I'm going to go with Ardelean. I will say that Montserrat Conejo Ruiz, she's lost to a lot of fighters, and she's pretty much done nothing but lose after beating Cheyenne Velismas, formerly Cheyenne Bays. I'm sorry, JP. I know it's still tender subject, but either way, could be Cheyenne Delija at this point. Either way, guys, Montserrat Conejo Ruiz, she's a little bit too small, and Ardelean is very physical, and she pushes girls up against the cage, beats them up there, pressure heavy, a lot of volume. I just think she's going to push her up against the cage and out-volume her and beat her up in volume on the feet, pushing forwards. I don't see Montserrat Conejo Ruiz, classic Ruiz head and arm throw, working all that well against Ardelean. At least it could work, but it's not going to work in the way that she'll dominate the fight because of it. 5 feet tall in the division. A lot of her weight is elsewhere on her body. Now, a lot of the weight is elsewhere on both of these girls, I'll be honest with you guys, okay? But I'm going to go with Ardelean. I think she's had better performances. She's more gritty, more aggressive. Last fight she had was a scrappy fight of the night. I haven't seen anything good from Montserrat Conejo Ruiz since she beat Cheyenne Velismas. She's lost every fight. Now, she's fought good opponents, but she's been getting messed up by him pretty badly, and levels have been shown. So I'm going to go with Ardelean getting this one done, and she follows me on Instagram, so let's go Ardelean. You know what I'm saying? Part of Jerusalem. You know what it is. You know what it is. She's going to get this one done, I reckon, by close. As much as I've been saying that she's going to win, I reckon it's going to be like a 29-28, close, competitive decision, where she just outworks Montserrat Conejo Ruiz. So, yeah, I'm going with Ardelean getting this one done. We move on. Up the card, Kelten Vieira versus Norma Dumont. Now, a woman I wish followed me on Instagram, Norma Dumont. We are going to go with Norma Dumont here, guys. I mean, it's cheeks ahoy on the prelims so far as I'm concerned. Not so much on the other side over here. But, you know, Kelten Vieira's, yeah, it's quiet tastes, guys. I don't know what to say here. Kelten Vieira's been pretty shit recently in her career, I would say. And she had that fight with Holly Holm, and there was a moment where she was a top contender, but real inconsistent, real bad performances pretty often, over and over and over again. Not really looking too great in her wins either. Whereas Norma Dumont, in my opinion, in her last performance against Irene Aldana, looked the best we've ever seen her look. And looked really, really sharp on the feet and beat up Irene Aldana for 3 straight rounds at the Sphere. That was a really impressive stand-up performance from her. And it's not like she's easy to be taken down and controlled on the ground. And, you know, I think that maybe Vieira had easier times with Chasson than Norma Dumont does. So maybe there'll be some pressure that could get to Dumont up against a cage, couple takedowns, who knows. But I think if we're on the feet, Dumont's going to have an advantage here. And also, on the feet, Irene Aldana did sleep Kelten Vieira pretty badly. Whereas Norma Dumont pieced her up so badly in that fight over 3 rounds. Left her face an absolute mess afterwards as well. So I'm going to say that Norma Dumont's got all the momentum right now. And I'm going to say that Norma Dumont pulls this one off by decision. Kelten Vieira's just been pretty stinky performance-wise recently. A loss to Yana Santos isn't that bad in hindsight. But Norma Dumont's looking sharp. She's had some good wins. Feels like she's meant to be in the bantamweight division. She was up at featherweight for some moments in her career as well, as of course. Beat Jermaine Durandamy recently as well. I thought that's pretty impressive. So yeah, I think she'll beat Kelten Vieira. So I'm going to go with Norma Dumont getting this one done. We haven't seen her too active recently, so hopefully we can build up that activity moving forwards. But she's got this one, dude. Norma Dumont's got this one. Kelten Vieira's not going to win. I'm going with Norma Dumont by decision win, 29-28, the classic women's MMA 29-28 decision. We move on. Up the card, Donte Johnson versus Sedrique Dumas. This guy's a Dumas for taking this fight. I'm just chucking in puns here, guys. We got to make this Apex card somehow interesting. Waldo Dumas for taking this matchup. Donte Johnson, I think, is going to bulldoze right through him and put him away. This is a short notice fight for Sedrique Dumas. Not too short notice, a couple of weeks, but Donte Johnson just got done knocking out a heavyweight on the Contender Series that was way bigger than him. And actually took some big shots off the guy as well. The guy landed a really nasty uppercut on him and stumbled him for a second. Not even. He ate the uppercut very well and then started rocking this guy on the Contender Series. I think he weighed, what did he weigh? Yeah, 209 pounds. He fought a heavyweight that was probably about 240, 250. And he was 209 pounds in the fight. And he still put him away by first round TKO. And that tells me this guy was just a middleweight that wanted to be on the roster. But they were just like, we haven't got a middleweight on the Contender Series for you. And he just said, well, give me a fucking heavyweight then and I'll knock him out. And then there you go. Goes out there, knocks him out. Now 6-0, undefeated. Got good grappling as well. I think he'll use that here against Sedrique Dumas if he wants to. And also the power on the feet, man. Sedrique Dumas had a few stinkers recently. Of course, the groin shot situation with Zachary Ruiz. Pretty bad one there. He's had some fouls against him in his career. Abu Azaitar grabbing him by his dreads and punching him up. And that was a weird one as well. Yeah, Sedrique Dumas has had some weird performances in his career. Sometimes he does look fundamentally sound, but I just think there's too much talent and potential in Donte Johnson for me to ignore, which is why he's such a massive. I think he's at minus 400 going into this one. So I'm going to go with Donte Johnson. I think he's too physical. And if he's bullying around a heavyweight and piecing him up against a cage that's got like 40 pounds on him and not morbidly obese anyway. Most heavyweights are morbidly obese, but he was piecing this guy up. So I'm going to go with Donte Johnson getting this one done. I think he'll go straight through Sedrique Dumas early in the fight. So I'm going to say first or second round finish for Donte Johnson. We move on up the card to another fight, which is Timmy Cuamba versus Changho Lee. Holy shit, what a matchup. I'm going to go with Changho Lee. I was very impressed by his Cortavius Romeus fight. This is, I think, the fight where I was saying, you'll stay out of my store, while he was on top of him, just battering this guy. I see what you're stealing, what you're taking. You'll never show your face again. And he's just beating the fuck out of Cortavius Romeus in that fight. Nasty grappling, though. That's what I wanted to point out here. Timmy Cuamba is good, but his last win was against that Romero guy that shouldn't really be in the UFC in the first place, but had like a good performance against Onama on short notice in his debut. Like a really oddly good performance where he gave Onama a ton of trouble, which might sway my main event pick here in a second because that looks really bad. But other than that, Timmy Cuamba lost to Balaji Oki. He's lost to some other fighters as well. I think maybe it's not him. Maybe it's another fighter higher up. No, it's another fighter. But Timmy Cuamba's got some moments. He looks sharp on the feet. He looks fast. He's powerful. He landed a flying knee in his last fight. I just think that Changho Lee's got some good stand-up. And he's also got some really good grappling to go with it. So I like the way he chains it together. I like the way he takes the back, secures dominant position, fights for dominant position, ground and pound. He's always working. He's got good pressure, good pace. So I just think he's got too many layers of attack for Timmy Cuamba to deal with. So Cuamba lost his first two fights. Came back, beat this Romero guy, got a nasty knee. It was a really good win, but it just wasn't against a caliber of opponent that I respect, in all honesty. Whereas Cortavius Romeus, I did say that Changho Lee was going to beat him, and I did say that Cortavius Romeus isn't this prospect to watch out for. But he was still a talented guy that went for a decent opponent on the Contender Series and beat him. So, you know, Changho Lee, I reckon he'll get this one done, mixing it up, changing up the levels, doing a few things in a few different places. And I reckon Changho Lee will get this one done by finish. I'm going to say he finishes this by ground and pound or rear naked choke from the ground and pound setup. So I'm going to go with Changho Lee finish in the first or second round. We move on. Up the card, Billy Elekana versus Kevin Christian. So, I reckon Billy Elekana's going to win. Had some moments against Bogdan Guskov in his debut where he took him down, had his back, nearly had the rear naked. Guskov stayed safe. Then eventually bullied Elekana around a little bit, piecing him up, landing some good shots, got the guillotine from like a really odd position. But Elekana took that fight on like a week's notice. Other than that, he pieced up Ibo Aslan in his last fight, Billy Elekana, and it was a pretty slow-paced fight, but he was really comfortably just picking apart Ibo Aslan. I know Ibo Aslan isn't the best fighter in the world, and he's pretty shit in general. But he's all right. You know, he's strong. He's not some slob. He's decently talented. There's going to be a bit of a height difference here between Christian and Billy Elekana, but I think Billy Elekana is going to be chopping at this guy's legs at range, slowing down the pace of the fight a lot. I didn't see anything good from Christian on the Contender Series when it came to his striking. He did have some good work off of his back, but Elekana grapples in a way for dominant position. The guy who he grappled against on the Contender Series, Kevin Christian, I think his name was Cosmo or something like that. It wasn't, but similar. And he kept taking down Kevin Christian and just getting into full guard with him. Doing some work, but getting like hit with an elbow off bottom now and then. I think he got cut open with an elbow on bottom position, but he was landing good shots on the feet and just wading in. And that was a shorter guy than Billy Elekana as well. So I'm saying Billy Elekana is going to do well here. I think he's got some good talent that can go far in this division. I just think he drew a short straw taking on Guskov in his debut. But Kevin Christian got a good triangle submission, but again got taken down. Really, like, it should have been a stuffed shot in my opinion, but he got drove over himself. And I'm gonna bring up another thing here, and I'm just using this to predict fights. There's Indian in there, you know what I mean? Just a touch. Every Brazilian sound different. You got Lyoto Machida, he's Japanese Indian. Japanese Brazilian. You got Luque, he's like French, Southern France Brazilian. Old France, not current France, or he'd look more like Kevin Christian. But either way, there's different types of Brazilian guys. Anderson Silva's African Brazilian. You've got, you know, Charles Oliveira types. Just all sorts of Brazilians with different things in them. Julian Pave's an Indian Brazilian, and I think Kevin Christian's quite similar, guys. And I'm just being real with you. It just doesn't bode well for combat sports, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with the athleticism of Billy Elekana. I'm going to say that he's going to chew this one up at range. Inside low kicks, outside low kicks. Christian has a really wide stance. So he's really tall, but he doesn't really use his kicks that much like I'd like him to. He has a very wide stance. And he kind of saunters in, which lowers his base. And it also leaves a lot of openings for low kicks for Billy Elekana, who's got good low kicks, got good kicks to the body. So I'm going to go with Billy Elekana getting this one done. And also Christian getting taken down. He clutched a win from like a bad performance, in my opinion, on the Contender Series. And they signed him anyway. So, Danny, you said you can't do 2 seasons of the Contender Series. If you don't sign everyone who gets a finish, you can. Even if they look bad, you don't have to sign them. So I'm going to go with Billy Elekana. I think if Kevin Christian came around on the last Contender Series cards of this season, he wouldn't have been signed. So I'm going to go with Elekana getting this one done by decision. I'm going to say by decision win. 30-27, sweeps the scorecards. Some rounds are close, but I'm going to lean towards Billy Elekana here. We move on to the main card, Allan Nascimento versus Cody Durden. Now, I was worried about this one because Cody Durden is a good grappler and he's actually a pretty good pace setter against people that like to think of themselves as jiu-jitsu guys. And he's got good survivability from submission positions. His chin's failing him a little bit recently, but he's taken a ton of fights on short notice. You know, he's getting dropped in fights and hurt and put away. Got hurt by Makayev and then caught in that guillotine and subbed, and he's had some bad moments in his career, but he's also had some good moments where he's beaten Charles Johnson, which is a really underrated win, but I don't know if he got it. It was a very close fight. He's just volume on the feet without too much power, and then volume in the takedowns that he goes for. And when I'm saying that a guy might win based on volume, I don't want him to be taking a fight on a week's notice, and that's just really what it comes down to. I also think that Allan Nascimento is going to thrive off of this being catch weight because he is a massive flyweight, 5'8", and not skinny by any means. Like, he's lean, of course, but he's not a frail little twig like Sumo Dwergi in the flyweight division. So I'm going to say that he's going to like that this is a catch weight bout. So I'm going to say that Allan Nascimento gets this one done. Another thing to mention here as well, Allan Nascimento out-grappled Jafel Filho round after round and got dominant position over him and had hooks in on his back. And I'm just thinking, man, Jafel Filho is a really, really good jiu-jitsu guy. Up 2 rounds against Mohamed Makayev. Lost in the 3rd, got knee bars submitted. But he's a very crafty submission specialist. Just beat Clayton Carpenter, I think. I picked him to do that as an underdog. because I like his jiu-jitsu skills in the flyweight division, and Allan Nascimento was one step ahead. You also look at Cody Durden versus Jake Hadley. That got dangerous in moments for Durden, where he nearly got armbarred in the second round and subbed a few times in the second round. But he got over it and put pressure on the feet and eventually put pressure on in the ground and pound. But it was still a scrappy 3-rounder. Whereas Nascimento completely dominated the grappling against Jake Hadley. Never nearly got caught in a submission and just kept top position for 3 straight rounds. So I'm going to go with Allan Nascimento getting this one done. I think he'll win it as it goes on. And if you're Durden, he's got good volume. He's got good pace. He's like a Colby Covington of the flyweight division is how I would describe him. But taking a fight on a week or two's notice when you're that, it's not something I can rely on. So I'm going to go with Allan Nascimento getting this one done by decision, maybe even a submission in the second or third round. We move on. Up the card, Charles Radtke versus Daniel Frunza. Say it again, Radtke. He's going to say it again. It might say that on his chest. It doesn't. Blood Brothers or something like that. I don't know what he was going for, but it should say it again across his chest. I'm going to go with Charles Radtke, to be honest with you guys. Daniel Frunza. People were kind of hyped up on him. I wasn't too hyped up. It's hard to tell just how good certain guys are coming through the Contender Series based on the opponents they take on. I wasn't too impressed by his regional career that much, but he's all right. He had 2 losses, though, coming in 9-2. Lost to Rhys McKee in his debut. Now, Radtke lost to Carlos Prates. Radtke got cracked by Mike Mallet. These are solid fighters in the welterweight division, man. They're not schmucks at the bottom of the rankings, that are just terrible. And oh my God, how could Radtke lose to those guys? That's not the situation in those losses at all. Mallet's very good. Prates is extremely fucking good. I don't really blame Radtke for those losses too bad. And one thing I like about this for Radtke is it's going to be a stand-up fight as far as I'm aware. Maybe Frunza's got different ideas. But I think this is going to be a stand-up fight. Radtke used to be a lightweight. That's lighter man's skill coming up to the welterweight division. And he's got wicked power in his hooks. And Frunza got dropped so many times by Rhys McKee in that first round. And I think Rhys McKee's kind of shit and don't have that much power. He looked decent on the regional scene, Rhys McKee. Had a ton of experience. But he's never had good performances in the UFC. Bar his fight with Frunza, where he pieced him up really badly in the first round and messed him up bad. Ton of damage, ton of knockdowns. Radtke, you can't afford to get knocked down like that in the first round against Radtke. So I'm going to go with Charles Radtke getting this one done by first round TKO. And maybe, just maybe, seeing as we're in the apex, they'll let him say it again. And that's all we're hoping for, because the world needs that right now, okay? We're looking to heal the world with the words of Radtke. And hopefully he pulls through for the sake of humankind, in all honesty, and says it again, live on ESPN. Because we don't know how long we're going to be on ESPN for. And if he wins this one, we need Radtke to say it again on Paramount, because it just needs to span across eras of broadcasters, in my opinion. They all need to sweat when Radtke gets on the mic. So I'm going with Charles Radtke, early TKO win, first round, in my opinion. We move on. Isaac Dulgarian versus Yadier Del Val. I'm going to go with Isaac Dulgarian here. I've been high on Isaac Dulgarian for a while. I thought he could have arguably beat Christian Rodriguez. I think if his name was Isaacov Dulgarianov, he would have beaten Christian Rodriguez on the scorecards. It's a sad reality of the sport, but I said this on the Mighty Guru show recently. If Jailton Almeida's name was Jailtonov Almeidarov, he beats Volkov in that fight. It's just as simple as that. So his style, unfortunately, wasn't appreciated enough because of where he was from, being in the Caucasus. So they kind of just gave it to Christian Rodriguez, who did do some good work towards the end of the second round on the feet, don't get me wrong. And I picked Dulgarian to win that fight, but watching it back, I can see, okay, damage over control. But the way he was getting control over Christian Rodriguez is not an easy guy to just ragdoll like that, You can catch Christian Rodriguez, you can out-damage him on the feet, you can put him, Andre Fili can do well on the feet against him, But Christian Rodriguez is a good, really, really good counter-grappler. We saw this against Raul Rosas Jr. We've seen it against many fighters in the UFC where he stuffed their takedowns routinely. It's like goofy guys on the feet that seem to give him the problems. But Isaac Dulgarian, was able to really chuck him around in those first 2 rounds. And if he would have done just a tad more in round 2, he wins that fight very clearly, 29-28, while using grappling to succeed. Round 3 was very risky for him, very dangerous, got beaten up a bit in round 3, don't get me wrong. I'm just going to go with him to win this one, man. I don't know if Yadier Del Val has the same level of grappling defense as Christian Rodriguez does. He also had a fight with Conor Matthews in the UFC that I thought, you know, Conor Matthews is New England cartel guy from New England area. They're pretty shit fighters overall, in my opinion. So I'm going to go with Isaac Dulgarian to out-grapple Yadier Del Val. Del Val's all right, though. He's well-rounded. He's good everywhere. He had a decent performance on the Contender Series, but it's not the same level of hype that I had for Isaac Dulgarian, you know? To stand out having hype as an American prospect, we see Americans come and go. So it was like, oh, this guy's actually must be really good. He's on everyone's radar. Whereas Yadier Del Val, Cuba, it's more of the niche. A lot of guys get in based on their niche. Like, oh, he's got hype because he's got this niche audience and fan base behind him. So the Cubans are known for a good bit of grappling, though, to be fair. So maybe he does have some skill in the grappling we got to be worried about. But I just don't rate his wins. I don't rate Conor Matthews' win. I like the Dulgarian's coming off a win right now. Dominant win. Got a finish as well. Looked good in his debut. Ragdolling people. I think he fought Moreau. Not the best of opponents, don't get me wrong, but he made it look easier. Got the submission win in round 2. So I like this for Dulgarian. I think he's going to be able to out-grapple Yadier Del Val to a finish or a decision in the later 2 rounds. Finish in the later 2 rounds or a decision overall. Of course, he's not going to get a decision in the later 2 rounds. But in the first 2, I think he'll win it easily. So maybe Yadier Del Val's got to wait for the 3rd to get going here. Dulgarian should chuck him around. Look at the grappling level of Dulgarian if you ever want to watch some cool shit. He's very, very good at grappling and very, very dominant. And he reminds me of a bit of a Jacob Smith of the featherweight division, you know, as terms of an American prospect coming up. So I'm going to go with Dulgarian. Decision win or late rounds finish. We move on. Jeremiah Wells versus Temba Garimbo. This is an odd one because I think Temba Garimbo, again, got a lot of hype because he is African, out of Africa. There's not many fighters that come out of Africa, so he had that story behind him, and he had a sob story. I feel like he's crying at every press conference I see, for good reasons or not. I'm not shitting on him, but he got a lot of attention because he seemed to have this crazy talking about all his hardships on the mic moments all the time, and something's always going on. And The Rock heard his story, right? Dwayne The Rock Johnson heard his story, brought him a house to like train out of. So he got off to a good start in the UFC, to be fair, as well. You know, he had a really good performance against Nico Price. He had some other really good performances. He beat Pete Rodriguez, put him away. It's an easy opponent, though, to be fair, but still put him away, made it look easier. His grappling's been very good recently as well. Got caught by Luque and subbed. Not a good look with current edition Luque, which isn't the same. But, you know, Luque can crack and Luque can sub you with a DAS. And that's exactly what fucking happened in that fight. And that's the two things that Luque still got. And Temba just unfortunately got hit by both of them. Jeremiah Wells, on the other hand, I just feel like this is going to be a volume thing. I don't see him finishing Temba Garimbo. He could do. He does have some crazy power in his hands. But I just don't think he's all that, you know? Not that active, getting up there in age as well. Temba Garimbo's got range on him. He's got volume. He's got activity recently in his career. I think he's hungrier at this point in his career as well. I just feel like Jeremiah Wells is a physical freak. And if you look at him, you think, oh my God, this guy's going to fucking destroy people and be an Ngannou of the division and all of this. But he just isn't consistent enough with his KO power for me to say, as an underdog here, he's going to KO Temba Garimbo and get an upset win. So I'm going to lean towards Temba Garimbo getting this one done, and I'm going to say he gets it done by decision win, 29-28. Maybe Jeremiah Wells gives him some problems in moments, but this should be comfortable for Temba Garimbo to pull off a decision victory over Jeremiah Wells at this point, in my opinion. So I'm going with Temba Garimbo. We move on. Up the card, Waldo Cortes Acosta versus Ante Delija. I'm going to go with Ante Delija here. Maybe I'm incorrect to do so. I don't know if that reach is correct. I'm going to reveal a reach that you're going to be seeing here. I don't buy this as the reach, okay? What they measure him with? Like, really, though? What are they measuring with? 70-inch reach at 6'4". Are you kidding me? Fucking hell. I don't believe that. I mean, I'm looking at the arms here and I'm thinking, they sit like pretty reasonably far down on their body the same way. I don't believe he has a 70-inch reach. Can we actually measure the reaches of these fighters and have an accurate measurement? There's no way this guy's got shorter arms than some featherweights on the roster. I just don't buy that. Maybe it's true. I mean, when you look at the forearms are normally a good way to tell, right? How far the gloves sit up on the forearms. It's just 9-inch reach advantage here for Ante Delija, and he's been looking sharp. I don't believe Waldo's arms are that short. I reckon he's got like a 74-inch reach, maybe. But we're looking at a reach advantage for Ante Delija here. And I also had this theory that he'd really massively improved recently in his career. Earlier in his career, he had a ton of stinkers. He fought this one guy, Shelton Graves. Looked like melted chocolate ice cream. You know what I mean? I know that Walter Walker just called Chris Barnett chocolate pepper pig. I mean, this guy that nearly beat Delija once on the PFL scene wishes he had a physique like Chris Barnett. I swear. That's how fucking saggy and messy this guy was. So I'm going to go with Ante Delija. I said he's improved massively. I said he would beat Tybura, and they had it evens as well in that fight. And I said he's going to beat Tybura. He's going to make it look easy. He's improved massively. He's been training with Tom Aspinall all this time. And he proved me right. So surely I'm going to continue with that, right? I'm going to continue with the fact that I had this theory about him that he's not the guy he once was. He's really coming into his prime. He's found some activity now in his career. He's lean for the division as well. I like that if this goes 3 rounds. Now, I do like Waldo Cortes Acosta here because the Sergey Pavlovich fight was like, okay, you know, that was a reasonably competitive fight with Sergey Pavlovich, but Sergey's not Sergey anymore. He's Sergey the Second. You know what I mean? He's been knighted Sergey of the realm or something. He's not Sergey Pavlovich anymore. He's Sergey is what we're seeing now from Sergey Pavlovich. So he's a little different since Aspinall shut his lights out and then Volkov pieced him up, right? It's not the same guy, and he still was able to beat Waldo Cortes Acosta, and I thought quite clearly, but closely. Still competitive fight, not really much happened. But then I watched the Sergey Spivak fight, and that's a guy I think Delija would piece up on the feet and finish in the first round. And that got really close for Waldo Cortes Acosta, so I think Ante Delija is very capable of following good game plans. I think if Team Aspinall haven't been coaching this guy to chop the low kicks on Waldo Cortes Acosta, I swear it's open every time for every opponent, the outside low kick. So I'm thinking that Ante's going to be chopping those. And once he gets off a few fast hands moving forward, I think are going to be going towards Waldo Cortes Acosta. So this could get tricky. I think we're going to see a decision here, is actually what I'm going to say. I think we'll see a decision between the two of them. But I think Ante's going to get it. I think it's going to be a close, competitive 29-28 in favor of Ante Delija. It's just boxing from Waldo Cortes Acosta. It's straight punches on the back foot, and if he gets you hurt from him, he'll start mixing in some other stuff. I don't see him getting takedowns on Ante. I don't see Ante getting takedowns on him. Ante will throw low kicks, though. He'll throw teeps. He'll throw inside low kicks. He'll stomp the leg. He'll go to the body more. So I'm going to lean towards Ante Delija here. And I'm going to say that he's a little bit more conditioned to fight at a higher pace than Waldo is. So he's an underdog, but I'm going to go with Ante Delija to get this one done by 29-28 decision. I reckon this one goes to the scorecards. We move on to the main event. Steve Garcia versus David Onama. This one's actually a pretty hype fight. I feel like this one would be appreciated more if it wasn't in a fucking main event, because it shouldn't be in a main event. Just call it what it is. This should not be a main event of a fight night in 2025. This one, if people saw this on the prelims of a pay-per-view, they'd say, oh, watch out for Garcia versus Onama. But because we've got it as a main event, it's not as good. You know, it doesn't feel as right. It feels like we aren't as hyped as we should be because the card overall is suffering based on the card that you've just seen. It's actually got some decent fights up and down it, though. I am going to go with Garcia, though. The only reason I would go with Onama here is if I could trust him to KO Steve Garcia. And Onama does have some KO power, and he's hurt fighters before. He dropped Landwehr a few times, but Landwehr's chin ain't all that. You know what I mean? He has been dropped a lot in his career. He's been wobbled a lot. He's got really good recovery and good grappling and good cardio and volume. But Onama cracked him a few times, and he popped right back up. And I know Steve Garcia got KO'd by Maheshe early in his career, 6 fights ago. I think he's on a 5-fight win streak in the featherweight division. And that includes like a beat-em-up destruction TKO of Cortes Acosta, which I rate. I really rate that victory very highly. Cortes Acosta is a tricky customer for a lot of opponents in the UFC featherweight division. And Steve Garcia went through him and TKO'd him in round 2. Very, very impressively. And then, after that, he got a win over... Who's another sleeper win that he had on his... I was watching the fights back the other day. Kyle Nelson puts him out in round 1. Finishes, TKOs, round 1 destruction of Kyle Nelson, who's good. Who is very, very good. So it's one of those, man. Steve Garcia has really been overperforming, and then he beats up on Calvin Kattar over 3 rounds, hurts him, drops him in that fight. People don't typically drop Calvin Kattar. You know, Yusuf Salal's got a ton of hype in the division. He picked at Kattar and moved and had a bad 3rd round against him as well, but Steve Garcia was beating him up. Had a really good performance over 3 rounds. You were worried, like, please don't finish Kattar. Don't make it the end of his career by finishing him here. Because Garcia's got really good pressure and really good volume and really good pace and power to go with it. I think that's David Onama's problem. When people pressure him and put pace on him, he does fold a bit. And he gets second wins. That's something that David Onama does pretty well. He gets second wins. So he'll sort of like be losing 3 minutes, and then he'll get back up and crack someone on the feet, and then boom, he's going for it again. But I just don't think he'll finish Garcia. I don't think he'll finish him. I don't think he'll drop him too often, more than like once, maybe. But if you look at the last 3 fights of David Onama, he hasn't had that KO shot. He hasn't had that KO shot. And most of the guys he has a reach advantage against, he's not having that reach advantage here over Steve Garcia. You can see the arms here. Maybe Waldo really does have a short-ass reach, because Garcia's arms will look way longer. So he doesn't even have that reach advantage that he typically does have over the other featherweight contenders. You know, he fought Chikedze, close fight on the feet, arguably losing in moments, but got takedowns where he needed them. I don't think he's going to be able to control Steve Garcia on the ground, though. Trains out of Jackson Wink, very, very good gym. I don't think he's going to have fundamental flaws in any given area in the fight. Then he had other decisions against Jonathan Pierce. That was worrisome. A lot of guys finished Jonathan Pierce, you know. Jonathan Pierce got finished before and after that David Onama fight. Got submitted by Joe Anderson Brito. Got made easy work of by Pat Sabatini in the first round after that fight as well. I weirdly know a lot. I got to trust myself more to just know what I'm fucking talking about. I'm here like stressing before this thinking, am I going to know? But I've got this all in my head somewhere, boys. David Onama, though. Not consistent finishes recently. And then oh my God, the Romero fight. There you go. The guy that I was saying Timmy Cuamba beat, but he isn't really that good, because he isn't. That guy was fucking putting volume and pressure on Onama in their fight. Well, I was worried that he was going to get broke. He was going to break Onama. Because I was thinking, this should be an easy one for Onama. You know, this guy's stepping in short notice in his debut. Not a good guy from the regional scene anyway. Shouldn't even be in the UFC. And he nearly broke Onama. I think he dropped him early in that fight as well. Romero dropped Onama early in that fight. I think Onama eventually won, dropping him later and getting some good control in moments. But it was that volume, in-your-face pressure that Romero brought that gave Onama some problems. That it didn't give Timmy Cuamba, because he's not that good, Romero. But I just think that style of grit and Mexican pressure and volume, and Landwehr has that style a bit as well. You can break Onama with it. And I think Steve Garcia is going to push forward and get this finish in the 3rd or 2nd round. I'm going to go Steve Garcia here. I'm glad I remembered that Romero fight of Onama, because that was a real worrying look. Whereas Garcia's been destroying. That's the difference that I'm noticing here. So I'm going to go Steve Garcia getting this one done. And also there's another thing that I have to mention every single time David Onama fights. James Krause, of course, everyone knows him for the wrong reasons, but he was a really good MMA coach at one point. Had a massive gym full of a ton of fighters in the UFC. Grant Dawson, Onama, Jeff Molina. Yeah, I'm saying. It's all good. It's all good. It's 2025. We can say his name. Not like he's Voldemort. But either way, David Onama was from that gym. And even Moreno was in that gym at one point in time as well, right? When he was a championship, around that championship range that he had.
But David Onama, I remember one thing that, and this is where I worry about him against a volume and pressure volume striker that's going to be looking for a finish as well in Steve Garcia here. James Krause always said he's late to practice. He doesn't put in work in the gym. He doesn't hustle. He doesn't grind. He's got natural talent, but he just doesn't put in the work that the other guys do. I remember him actually ratting out his own guy in Onama by saying that and thinking, yeah, I can see that. That might be a problem against a Nate Landwehr. And sure enough, he's getting broken and tired by Nate Landwehr. So, yeah, maybe he's turned that around, which speaks to his recent success. But if that's his peak, I still think Garcia's got him. So I'm going to say Garcia, second or third round TKO after a ton of pressure. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Goodbye.